Hello class, thank you for joining me remotely. I'm sorry I couldn't be with you today, but I wanted to walk you through some of the content that I want you to review since we're not having class physically. The first thing I want to draw your attention to is I added a new assignment right here. This is your first major essay assignment. Oh, and I just noticed this is in the wrong place. Ignore that. I'll move it later. We're going to go ahead and click on this, where we can go and see the instructions for the ad analysis essay. So I'm going to read this to you. I'll explain some things as I go, and then I'm also going to be talking with you about this again when I see you next Tuesday. So I don't think that I'm just going to throw this out there and kind of leave you to figure this out on your own. We are going to revisit it, but I want to make sure that you get this introduction first so that you can start thinking about it. So what you'll be doing for this ad analysis essay is using your knowledge of rhetorical techniques combined with the assigned advertised articles. Those are the things that I'm having you read prior to watching these videos. And I'm going to have you analyze 2 to 3 print ads for similar products and develop a thesis that is central to all adverts. In your analysis, please consider some or all of the following as they apply to your ads. So here are some questions I'm posting. You could answer these in your journal and they would help you to think through and further analyze the advertisements you've selected. They're just for you in your invention stage. They are not to be answered in the essay. One of the biggest mistakes I've seen with this essay is that some students will look at this laundry list of questions I've posted and they will answer them in order in their essay, and they will call that their essay, and it does not flow well. Not every single one of these questions is relevant depending on your thesis, and don't worry, we're going to talk more about how to develop thesis statements and like what exactly I'm looking for later. I'm going to go through and read these to you so that you can see what it is I'm looking for. Firstly, I want you to look at what is the first thing you notice about the ad. Is it effective in getting the viewer to examine the product more closely? Number 2, who is the intended audience? How can you tell? What strategies are enlisted to entice this group? Next, discuss the visual layout. Does the ad use positive or negative space, and what is its effect? I realize I haven't defined that for you. When we come back, or maybe later on in this video, I can kind of show you what I mean by positive and negative space, but the way an image is featured and whether it utilizes positive or negative space, how much space it takes up on a page, also communicates something without using text. So it's your job to kind of decipher, what was the intended meaning? What did the creator of this ad want to convey with the images selected, the words selected, and so forth? What main color schemes are utilized, and what do you suppose they are doing for the product? Is there any statistical or factual data to support the product? If not, why do you suppose this is? It's going to be very rare that you find a product or an advertisement that features logos or factual information. If it does have it, it's probably worth considering why it was included. And if an advertisement doesn't have it, it's also worth considering why isn't there any factual information? Why didn't the advertiser take the time to include that kind of stuff? Next, is it accurate or misrepresented? Also consider whether or not, if there is what seems to be factual information, is it presented accurately or is it inflated? What is it doing, in fact? Does the ad seem to be selling a look, a lifestyle, a relationship, or any other promise not directly tied to the product itself? Does the ad use ethos, pathos, or logos to communicate its message? 99% of the time, your advertisements are going to rely heavily on pathos. You're going to have to explain that, explain why there maybe is or is not ethos, why there is or is not logos, but you want to be thinking about all of these things. Go back to our first discussion on rhetoric. You're really trying to analyze the messages that are contained within these advertisements so that you can show me you understand how rhetoric works. Does the ad utilize weasel words to overstate the effectiveness or appeal of the product? This goes back to Schrank's little article that I shared with you on weasel words. These are just basically vacant promises. Does each of your ads use similar techniques to sell their products? What are their similarities and differences, and what does this tell you about the product itself? As I said earlier, It's not necessary to answer all of these questions, only the questions that are relevant to your thesis and, the scope of your essay. And again, from what I've assigned to you in terms of reading those 3 different articles, you don't have to use all of the information, but you want to use what is relevant and applicable to, again, the thesis you're trying to construct. It would be smart, however, to use some of that information. You don't want to just say, I don't need it, and try to wing this. You definitely want to consult some of the readings that I've given you to further enhance your understanding and analysis of the advertisements. Additional things you can do. You might want to do additional research on the brands or products themselves to acquire statistical data for the intended audience, factual supporting data, or any other information pertaining to the marketing of your products. You may also wish to research demographical data for your magazine, if you did use a magazine to get your print ad, to see how this ties into the product's targeted audience. Again, this is a rhetorical consideration and part of the message's larger context. If you pick up an issue of 17 magazine and you're looking at ads from a 17 magazine, you know that your audience is primarily female, primarily teenagers. So right there, even just the demographic of the magazine tells you something about the ads. Ads geared at a 40-year-old, man aren't going to be placed in 17 magazines. So those can be helpful little clues. Additional research, however, is not required for this assignment. It's totally up to your individual discretion. Please use appropriate MLA citations, both in text and as part of your works cited page, if you choose to go this route. In other words, if you choose to use additional sources outside of the readings I've provided for you for your own convenience. And I might have to double check this, but I have provided you with your works cited entries and your in-text citations for the articles I have given you. I'm going to double check and make sure that I've done those correctly, because I think this one I might have changed. But don't worry, those will be correct and you'll be able to use them. Now, before you get started on this essay, I want you to note that in your journal, and before you begin your first draft, you do have to complete at least one invention strategy. So that can be a free write, that can be topoi, that can be tag mimics, pentad method, any of the things that we discussed when we had our lecture on invention strategies. And you must complete it thoughtfully with the intent to further progress with understanding the subject matter for your essay, organizing your essay, basically just moving towards the drafting stage of your essay. Here comes the technical stuff. So your essay, when it's all done, should be 3 to 5 pages in length. It should be in Times New Roman or similar font, so Calibri is fine. That is the new word default. And you should have a header as well as a fitting title. Personally, I'm going to teach you that titles are imperative, and you need a clever title, not just the name of this ad analysis essay. You want something that fits whatever your particular ad analysis essay is about. So I'll continue to work with you on that. So on Thursday, September 21st, you need to have your rough draft done. At that time, you need to print out and physically bring to class 3 printed copies of your rough draft. If you don't have those copies in hand before class begins, you're not going to receive credit for that class or for that draft, for that peer review day. So really important. You can't come to class and say, crap, they're on my computer, can I print them out? I'm not accepting it. Yeah, sure, you can do that, but you're going to be missing a large portion of class. I'm not going to let you swap with other students, and you're going to lose those points. So just don't do that. Just print them, have them ready to go. The final draft will be due Thursday, September 28th. That's 1 week later. That will be due to the Dropbox. By then, hopefully, we'll all understand how to utilize the Dropbox. There are no exceptions. It must be uploaded to the Dropbox. Please be sure to read the sample student essay that I am attaching here if you want to see what a good, example of the ad analysis essay looks like. And if you want to further understand precisely what I'm looking for as you complete this assignment, you can check out the writing rubric by clicking on this. Feel free to email me with any questions. So before I wrap this up, I want to show you one other thing. For those of you that aren't using magazines, I am going to show you something that we can use that is given to us with our Penn State Library access. So I want you just to go to your browser bar and type in Penn State Libraries. I never can remember the exact web address of our library, so we can kind of cheat and do it this way. Here we go. I want Penn State Libraries. Now, later on in the semester, we're going to have one of our librarians come in. She's going to show us in more detail how to use this for our research papers. But for right now, I want you to click on where it says databases right here. And I want you to go to A, because we're going to go to a database that begins with A. We are looking for AdForum Creative Network. I just found this recently, and just note that it takes a minute to load. I found this recently and thought that for those of you that don't have access to magazines, or you don't want to locate magazines, rather than going out onto Google Images and trying to locate ads, some of which are just things people have photoshopped and aren't actually advertisements that have been completed by advertising agencies, this is a great resource for you. Please keep in mind that for this essay, I am only accepting print ads. I don't want to see television commercials, anything that would be in a video format. So for starters, before we begin our search of, 170,000 plus ads from around the world, come to media here and select print. We don't want TV and cinema. I don't care about brand. For example, let's say you decide that you want to look only at Coca-Cola. I don't even know if this will work. Let's see. We'll do Coke and print. Okay, so you can see I'm finding some Coca-Cola ads. They're not all necessarily, though, geared towards an audience in the United States, and that's okay as long as there's reason for you selecting that. If you decide that you're going to look at advertisements in other countries, that's fine, but you have to be able to analyze them. But okay, so that's one way I could search, just by brand, but I'm not going to use brand. I am going to recommend that for the majority, if they're probably going to want to stay in the United States. And let's see. I recommend, so once you have selected print as your medium in the United States as the advertisements that we would like to kind of hone in on, you can go to keywords. So different things that I'll tell students to look for. You need some similarity in your advertisement. So there are 3 ways you can do this. You can look at common audiences. So maybe you want to look at a target audience. Maybe the audience is all young children, and you'd want to look at products geared towards children. Or maybe you want to look at products that are all the same. So for example, maybe you want to do all fast food and try to come up with a thesis that shows, what do fast food advertisers do in common with their messages? What do they have that's similar? What is different? That's part of your thesis. Or oftentimes I'll tell you to look at some other factor, such as use of weasel words or something like color. I think that color theory is really powerful, and since you read a little bit about that, something I did earlier, I typed in the word red, I narrowed down my search, and then you see if I look at my search results, I have 185 results, all using the color red. So if you wanted to, let's say, pick 2 advertisements that use the color red in a kind of powerful way and compare how they use them, they could even be 2 totally different products. You might be able to find advertisements that work for you by using this AdForum database. So check this out, see if you like it. I'm going to be having you use AdForum to select at least 1 advertisement and analyzing it in a discussion thread, since we're not going to be in class to kind of practice how we would analyze these things. So definitely make sure that you follow the steps I took. Type in libraries.psu, locate the library database, go to the A's under databases and find AdForum, and you can come here and search. Make sure that you do indicate you want print as your medium. Sorry this took about 15 minutes, but I'm hoping that I gave you enough information to get started until I can meet with you again on Tuesday. If you have any questions, make sure you reach out to me with the phone number I've provided you. Like I said, that's my personal contact information, and you are welcome to use it. Thank you again for your attention. Good luck working on these advertisements while I'm gone, and I will see you when I get back on Tuesday. Take care.